I'm J.A.COX, and I am the author of 4 nonfiction books. What I'm going to be reading today is an excerpt from my sci-fi work in progress, Fulfilling a Vow, Looking for Answers. The sudden jolt of the elevator reaching the first floor brought her mind back to the situation at hand. She smiled as she stepped through the parting doors. There he stood like a snarling pit bull. In those walnut brown eyes, fires blazed, fires set aflame by hell itself. Standing 5'5" with a firm gladiator build and a handsome baby face that belonged on the cover of a GQ magazine was Captain Carlos Rodriguez. His legs were bent like a tiger ready to pounce, and in his right hand he brandished a large combat knife. "This ends now," he growled. "Capitan." She smirked as he lunged forward. Stepping to the side, a few sheared champagne brown locks floated to the floor. Another centimeter or two and her neck would have been skewered. Following through with the same momentum, he twisted his arm and slashed diagonally, tearing a gash in her uniform from her cleavage down to her left hip. Despite these efforts, her swiftness of foot kept her unscathed. Not wasting any of his movements, an abrupt twist of his wrist brought the blade slicing across her stomach, once again tearing fabric instead of flesh, as she bowed her back out while sucking in her abdomen. Captain Rodriguez scuttled backwards, panting heavily, on instinct more than out of fear. If he had followed through with that thrust to plunge that knife deep into her abdomen, he felt strongly that things may not have played out as he intended. She isn't human. It was like she deliberately left herself open only to dodge at the last moment, as if she had anticipated his movements. Could she have been just toying with him? Of course. Why didn't he think of it sooner? Monsieur, you're such a tease, no? She replied, puckering her lips and tugging on the large flap he carved out of her coat that revealed more than a little of her voluptuous feminine wiles. She stepped forward, her chest thrust out, shoulders relaxed, and head held high. Her hips swung with the same hypnotic sway of a pendulum as she strutted toward him. Her eyes were like ravenous wolves circling their prey. He should have realized it from observing the footage of her fight with Kimigawa, that she favored close quarters combat, which meant the narrow corridor they were fighting in gave her an advantage. "Tu eres una mujer loca. I ain't your plaything." He flicked his wrist. Fit! The knife darted from his hand. A tingling sensation tickled down her spine from the rush of air that brushed against the side of her neck as she avoided another fatal blow. At that same moment, Captain Rodriguez snatched out his laser pistol and blasted away. She sneered from the singeing bolt that slammed into her left shoulder, realizing that the knife throw was a ruse to line her up for the shot. She dropped into a crouch and jumped to the right, and then left, avoiding 2 more lancing red bursts that whizzed past her. Snapping her arm down to her side, she snatched her baton from its holster and lunged forward. She winced. Another blast grazed the top of her right shoulder as she jabbed the tip of the baton towards its weapon hand. At the same moment, he lowered his arm to squeeze off a near point-blank shot, just as she changed her swing down and to the right. It was just enough to cause a misfire and send a powerful electric jolt surging up his forearm. Ah! He dropped his pistol as he retracted his throbbing arm. Lady Death thrust out with her other hand, fingers squeezed in tight, aiming straight for his throat. Captain Rodriguez's free hand sprung into action, crushing her slender wrist in his thick, muscular palm, holding her fingers centimeters from his Adam's apple and following up with a swift kick to her side. His eyes were sprat wide with bewilderment. His full strength went into that kick and not so much as a huff from her. It was like he had kicked a brick wall. Before he had time to react, as that wry smile crept across her face, he felt the full surge of 500 pulsed volts from the baton she brought crushing down onto his shoulder. Her eyes were lit with delight as she forced his convulsing body down to his knees. Leaning forward, she cupped his chin in her hand, looking deep into his glowing eyes. Capitan, her voice almost a whisper. It is dangerous to toy with a woman's heart. No?